Hello, and welcome back to the Striha Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Parker Striha, and on today's episode, we are going to be recapping the NFL Honors and Super Bowl 56. I'm by no means a professional, but I do love talking about sports, so thank you for joining me. The NFL Honors took place last Thursday, the 10th of February, and I went 6 of 7 for my NFL Honors predictions, which is actually very impressive, but I honestly feel like I should have went 7 for 7, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So to start off, Aaron Rodgers won MVP. This was probably one of the more controversial awards, in my opinion, just because there's been a lot of stuff going on like social media and stuff where people don't think he should have won. And I mean, I understand the argument. He had over 1,200 less yards than Tom Brady. He had 6 less passing touchdowns than Tom Brady, but he also did have 8 less interceptions and almost 200 less passing attempts. So Aaron Rodgers put up really impressive stats in nowhere near the volume that Brady did. So I think that needs to be taken into account because when Brady threw, I think over 720, Brady threw for over 720 passing attempts, I think, which is astronomical. And I think Aaron Rodgers only threw for somewhere in the low 500 range. So you put Aaron Rodgers' stats compared to Brady with that smaller volume, I think Aaron Rodgers had a more impressive season. He had a better passer rating, a better completion percentage, and although their teams did have the same record, but I mean, I'm not sad about how it went down. I predicted Aaron Rodgers to win. I think it could have gone either way. So, I mean, it is what it is. Brady is not retired, so I mean, that would have been his last chance to win an award. But Aaron Rodgers, I think he's going to keep going. He's going to try to get number 5 next year probably and just kind of go from there. For the Offensive Player of the Year, it was Cooper Kupp from the Los Angeles Rams. I don't think there was any surprise here. It could have went to Jonathan Taylor, the running back for the Colts, but I think Cooper Kupp was the best choice. He had arguably the greatest receiving season ever. He led the league in receptions, yards, and touchdowns, and not even including his postseason stats, which were astronomical as well. I just think Cooper Kupp deserved it. He was 17 yards away from breaking the all-time single-season receiving yards record, which also had Matthew Stafford as the quarterback for that. But you don't put up a season like that as a wide receiver and not get the award. He could have honestly been considered for MVP, but the MVP is a very quarterback-biased award. So, I mean, I don't think there was any chance he was going to get it, but he could have had some strong consideration for it. For the Defensive Player of the Year, it was TJ Watt from the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had 22 and a half sacks this year, which tied the NFL single-season record. So I think that's enough said. I think if he didn't win the award this year, I myself and a lot of people around the world, and especially in the football industry, would have been extremely frustrated because how would you have a season like that and not be named the best defensive player in the league? I mean, those two kind of go hand in hand. If you set or tie that record, I think you should just be handed the award anyways. But, you know, I could have seen a guy like Aaron Donald or even Trayvon Diggs getting it. But I do think TJ Watt did deserve this award. He's been snubbed the past couple years, in my opinion. So seeing him finally get it was very refreshing. Offensive Rookie of the Year was Jamar Chase from the Cincinnati Bengals. I thought this was a no-brainer, but something I was really impressive and I do want to mention is when I did give my honorable mention for the Offensive Rookie of the Year, I did say Rashawn Slater from the Los Angeles Chargers, and he actually did get one of the 43 votes, so I mean, my prediction wasn't too wild for that. I thought it was really cool that an offensive lineman finally got some recognition and actually got a vote for Offensive Rookie of the Year, even though he was never going to win it. But Jamar Chase was 4th in the league in receiving yards and 3rd in touchdowns with 1,455 yards and 13 touchdowns. As a rookie, that's extremely impressive. that he had better seasons than players that have been in the league for years. He had more receiving yards than guys like Keenan Allen, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce. He also had more receiving touchdowns than Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and DeAndre Hopkins. So to come into the league as a rookie and have people pretty concerned about your dropping issues because he dropped a couple passes in the preseason, and then to have a better season than some of the best receivers in the league, and then be top 5 in yards and touchdowns. I think it could have been unanimous, other than the vote for Rashawn Slater, obviously, but I think it was Jamar Chase's award to lose. Defensive Rookie of the Year was Micah Parsons from the Cowboys. No surprise here. He had arguably the greatest defensive rookie season ever, and he actually was a unanimous selection for it. I mean, just look at the stats. He was hands down the best defensive rookie all year. Like, from start to finish, he didn't really slow down, and I think that's kind of scary for the league when a player of Micah Parsons, he's an athletic freak. So seeing him come in and play like that and win Defensive Rookie of the Year, I think that's really just going to catapult him into superstardom. He's going to be considered for Defensive Player of the Year, I think, for a very long time. Comeback Player of the Year was Joe Burrow. And like the MVP, I think this one could have went either way. I selected Joe Burrow to win. I thought he was going to win. The Bengals really overperformed this year. I mean, no one expected the Bengals to come out and make the Super Bowl. No one expected them to be the number 4 seed in the AFC, especially when there's teams like Baltimore and Cleveland who are extremely underperformed this year, those two teams. But you look at the star power of all three of those teams combined, it should have been like Joe Burrow and the Bengals shouldn't have even been in consideration for a playoff spot. But I think the honorable mention, I don't know if I had Nick Bosa or Dak Prescott, but I think a lot of people thought this could have went to Dak Prescott. But Joe Burrow did have more passing yards than Dak Prescott, but he did have less touchdowns and more interceptions and a worse team record. So overall, I think this award could have went to Dak Prescott, but I think this year Joe Burrow was a media darling. So it was just it was flashier to give it to Joe Burrow. That's really all I got to say. I don't know a lot about that. I think Joe Burrow should have won, but it could have went either way. And then for the only prediction that I did get wrong was the Coach of the Year. I thought it should have been Matt LaFleur, but it was Mike Vrabel from the Tennessee Titans. I think it should have been Matt LaFleur because they had the best record in the league. They had a better record than the Titans, actually. Green Bay went undefeated at home this season, and they did beat the only undefeated team in Week 8 when they beat the 7-0 Cardinals without Devontae Adams, who is one of the best receivers in the league. The Titans went 12-5 this year compared to the Green Bay's 13-4 record. The Titans had less points per game, which I don't know how important that is when you're looking at the actual voting or how you choose that. But they also did go 6-3 without Derrick Henry, so I mean that's pretty impressive when you take out arguably the best running back in the league and you still have a record above 500 in the games he's out. I mean, I think it could have went either way. I think Matt LaFleur is kind of like the TJ Watt situation. I think he's kind of been snubbed the past couple years. How do you have the best record in the league or one of the best records in the league for 3 straight years and not get the award at least once? It beats me. I mean, I'm not upset that Mike Vrabel won. Yeah, it kind of messed up my predictions, but I'm not upset Mike Vrabel won. I love him as a coach. The players love him as a coach. So I think he was finally due one too because he's probably one of my favorite coaches in the league. And I think, like Matt LaFleur, he kind of deserved it. So it could have went either way, like a lot of these awards. But coming up after this quick break, we are going to be going over Super Bowl 56 and my thoughts of the game. So stay tuned. Super Bowl 56 took place this past Sunday on February 13th It saw the Los Angeles Rams defeat the Cincinnati Bengals 23-20 in what was the Rams' second Super Bowl championship ever. Overall, I really loved this game. I enjoyed it the entire way through. I don't think a lot of people gave the Bengals enough credit and thought they were going to hang with the Rams for most of the game. And they led for a good portion of the game, actually, too. But I really liked this game. I thought it was good. I thought it could have went either way. And I think I said in the Super Bowl, I think I said in the episode about the Super Bowl that I made earlier, it was America's Super Bowl. I mean, I don't think people were going to be too upset either way with whoever won. It would have been nice to see Joe Burrow win because got hurt last year and then comes out, leads the Bengals to the playoffs and then the Super Bowl. And then he got all the cool nicknames this year, Joe Cool, Joe Franchise, Joe Shiesty. So, I mean, I wouldn't have been sad if the Bengals won. I actually wore my Joe Burrow jersey for the entire game. So, I mean, I wanted them to win just because that was my prediction, but I wasn't sad. I love Matthew Stafford. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league, and that's not just because I'm a Georgia Bulldogs fan. But I think after 12 or 13 years in Detroit, Matthew Stafford was finally due some success. He deserved it. I mean, you don't stay in Detroit for that many years and not deserve to win. I mean, this is his first season in Los Angeles. Went 12-5, got into the playoffs, and then went 4-0 in the playoffs. So, I mean, it's nice for him. I hope he'll finally start getting some respect around the league. But now there's so much controversy, and people are getting upset about people asking if he should be a Hall of Famer or stuff like that. But, I mean, I think it's good for Matthew Stafford's career to be finally getting some national recognition. I mean, when you're on the Detroit Lions for that long, people aren't really going to be talking about you because the Lions are awful. But now you went 12-5 in one of the biggest markets in the world, or in the country, and then you win the Super Bowl. I think he's finally going to start getting some recognition, and I love that. Hopefully his team can stay healthy because there's a good chance I'm going to take him in fantasy football again next year. He's always the quarterback I go with normally, especially because he's available in those later rounds, and he's normally a dark horse for MVP in my opinion. I just don't think he gets enough appreciation. But in this game, like I said, the Rams did win 23-20. And in his first and only Super Bowl that he's been in, Matthew Stafford didn't play great, but he also didn't play awful. Hey, he went 26 for 40 for 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 really bad interceptions. You take the interceptions out, he actually had a really good game, but those 2 interceptions did happen, which kind of makes his stat line look a little bit worse, but not bad for a first-time guy in the Super Bowl. But the Rams could not get anything going on the ground. Their leading rusher was Cam Akers with 13 carries for 21 yards. And as a team, they had 23 carries for 43 yards, which is awful. I kind of expected a little bit more out of that Rams rushing attack. I don't think they have an elite rushing game, but you'd expect a lot more than not even 2 yards a carry out of a team that went 12-5 in the regular season. But for the receiving, it was once again Cooper Kupp who stole the show. He had 8 receptions for 92 yards and 2 touchdowns, including the game-winning touchdown over Eli Apple. I mean, he technically had 2 game-winning touchdowns. He had one that ended up getting called back because of offsetting penalties. But then I think the next play or 2 plays after, he did end up scoring the game-winning touchdown. And Odell Beckham Jr. had 2 receptions for 52 yards and a touchdown before leaving the game in, I think, the first quarter with what was found out to be a torn ACL. You really hate to see, I mean, I know a lot of people don't like Odell Beckham Jr., but you hate to see a guy tear his ACL. You hate to see a guy get hurt, but an ACL injury is really, really crucial to a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. who plays the wide receiver role, and you need your legs to be strong to make those cuts, and you never know, he might never be the same again, which is kind of sad, because I do like Odell Beckham Jr., and to finally see him play in a Super Bowl was nice. He did actually end up scoring a touchdown, which I thought was really good for him, considering he's been on teams that have really just been bad. He was drafted by the New York Giants and then went to Cleveland. And I think just this season alone, he had more touchdowns with the Rams than he ever had. Like, he had total with the Browns. So it was nice to see him get a ring, see him perform. but he is a free agent this year. So I can see him re-signing with the Rams on a really cheap deal just so he can rehab and come back healthy. Probably not for a playoff run because I'm sure he'll be out for the whole season, but you never know. But the Rams defense stole the show, in my opinion. They had 7 sacks, which really, really killed the Bengals in this game, I think, especially on the very last play of the game for the Bengals. It was 4th down, and I don't remember what the yardage was, but Joe Burrow dropped back to pass, and then Aaron Donald came flying through the line and completely blew the play up and really won the game for the Rams because that defensive line couldn't be stopped. But Aaron Donald had 2 sacks. Von Miller had 2 sacks. A'Shawn Robinson, Ernest Jones, and Leonard Floyd all had 1 sack. And then the old man, Eric Weddle, the guy who was in retirement just a couple weeks ago, came out, had 5 tackles, my bad. Had a really good game, got his ring, and then immediately retired again. But it was found out after the game, I believe, that he played. I don't know if he tore his pec in the game or prior to the game, but he played in the Super Bowl with a torn pec, which I can't believe. But if you want a Super Bowl bad enough, you're going to go out and play for it. And then on the Bengals side of the ball, quarterback Joe Burrow, in also his first Super Bowl, went 22 for 33 for 263 yards and 1 touchdown. So another really impressive showing for a first-time Super Bowl appearance for a really young quarterback. Joe Mixon also had a pass attempt for 6 yards and a touchdown, which I think really opened the game up for the Bengals because I think they took the lead or cut the lead of the Rams with that score. But Joe Burrow, I think, really stole the show. He's kind of America's heartthrob right now. Everyone loves him. Joe Shiesty is just, I think he's America's favorite quarterback right now. But yeah, he was sacked 7 times, which not good. I fear that if the Bengals don't get their offensive line figured out, they're going to have a similar situation to what the Colts had with Andrew Luck. He got hit all the time, got hurt a lot, and then retired early. Joe Burrow actually did get hurt in this game, but he played the entire game. He might have missed a snap, maybe, but he did end up actually playing through a sprained MCL, which I think happened late in the 4th quarter. But as soon as he was on the ground holding his knee, my heart kind of dropped. I didn't want him to be hurt, but he ended up playing through it, and Bengals obviously sadly lost, but I don't know if they'll be back just because that AFC is so good with teams like Baltimore, Buffalo, Kansas City. The Chargers have potential to be really good, so it'll be tough for them to make it out again, but you can never count them out. For the rushing game for the Bengals, Joe Mixon had 15 carries for 72 yards. I was really impressed with Mixon. He did have a really good game, and then he did have that passing touchdown. Through the air, T. Higgins had 4 receptions for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a 75-yard touchdown over Jalen Ramsey to start the second half. Rookie Jamar Chase had 5 receptions for 89 yards. And what was really sad is when you look at the film afterwards, he was actually wide open on that very last Bengals play of the game, but Joe Burrow didn't have time to get him the ball. I mean, you really can't do anything about it now. Now you're looking at it. You think, oh, he should have thrown it, but he didn't see him. He didn't have time. So, this game could have went either way because had he had time, the Bengals would have won that game because Jamar Chase was wide open way down the field. And then on the defensive side, they had 2 sacks, which is nothing compared to the Rams' 7. But I think one of the key plays that this defense made was actually a negative one. I think it was a holding penalty on Logan Wilson with less than a minute left in the game, which ended up giving the Rams the ball on, I believe, the 1-yard line. It didn't look like a penalty to me. I don't think a flag should have been thrown, but obviously it was. And I think that kind of just killed the Bengals. But, what are you going to do? It was a relatively clean game. there were some pretty bad calls missed and called. I mean, on that 75-yard touchdown to T. Higgins, he did have a hold of Jalen Ramsey's face mask, which should have been called, and it wasn't. But, I mean, what are you going to do? There's only so much you can do after the game has already happened. And yeah, like I said, with the Bengals, though, they need to fix that offensive line really, really bad. They have, I believe, like $63 million this year in cap space, so they need to go out and spend big money on offensive linemen. Like, if that's all you sign in free agency, you're doing a good deed. There's guys like Teron Armstead, Brandon Sheriff, Trent Brown that are all free agents. Throw them as much money as you can, because if you can't protect Joe Burrow, you're going to have an Andrew Luck situation, and that's just straight up not good, because then you're going to be right back to square one trying to find your franchise quarterback. And I mean, the Colts are still looking for their franchise quarterback after Andrew Luck retired. So you hate to see it, but I mean, I don't think the Bengals will be back for a while. That AFC side of the bracket is really, really strong. The Chiefs underperformed this year, but I mean, they'll be back and strong. The Buffalo Bills are really strong. The Ravens, when healthy, are a really good team. The Browns have potential, but I mean, they're kind of just, they're iffy. But I mean, you can't count them out. Chargers can be good. Patriots are going to be good for a while, I think. The Colts have potential. So, I mean, it's going to be really difficult for the Bengals to get out of the AFC side of the playoffs again, but you never know. And for the Rams, I think their path to the playoffs actually did just get a lot easier with Tom Brady retiring, because now I think there's only a couple teams in that upper echelon of the NFC, and that's the Rams, that's Green Bay. It might still be Tampa. I don't know what they're going to do. They have a lot to figure out this offseason. And then I think you can put the Cowboys there, even though they're really bad in the playoffs and seriously underperform when it comes to the postseason. I think they're in that upper echelon just based on talent alone. So, I mean, you never know. These two teams could meet in the Super Bowl again, but these teams could also both fall off the face of the earth and be absolutely awful next year, because both of them have a lot of free agency decisions to make. So, but on the other hand, it was really good. This game actually was really good for Bengals coach Zach Taylor, and this season as a whole was good for him because he showed enough that the Bengals actually announced a contract extension for him through the 2026 season. So, I mean, he's getting paid, and you love to see it. He willed this Bengals team that no one really expected to make. No one expected this Bengals team to do anything, and he somehow got them to overperform and make the Super Bowl after beating teams like the number 1 seed Titans, beating the Chiefs. So, I mean, I think he also, like I mentioned earlier with the Coach of the Year, I think he could have been considered for it just based on the production he got out of this team. But it happens. But like going back to the Super Bowl MVP, which I forgot to mention, was Rams wide receiver Cooper Kupp. And I think that was just the cherry on top for the greatest receiving season of all time. I mean, he had stats that any of the best receivers ever haven't had. Overall, he was the Triple Crown winner. He won Offensive Player of the Year, was Super Bowl MVP. So, I mean, I think it was only fitting that he got this award. He was, I mean, other than Aaron Donald, who I think could have been considered for it, Cooper Kupp was the best player in the game, and he showed it. He showed it all season. So, I mean, I won't make predictions for next year's Super Bowl. I'll save that for a later episode, and then I'll probably have an episode about both teams and like what they need to do in the offseason. But for now, I'm your host, Parker Striha, and this has been the Striha Sports Podcast. Our random sport fact of the day is that Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow was sacked 19 times in this single postseason, which is the most all time. As always, thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to hit that notification bell for whenever a new video gets posted.